the Hudson River Derby, Stadium Experience Tour with Brad Sims, and a keeper's feat on penalties. That and more coming up on Back-to-Back NYCFC Live Views Live.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. NYCFC Views.
Collins approaches the shot, and New York City wins the first MLS Cup on their first try, and they're going crazy. Tiene tiro y gol! Gol! New York City es el campeón de Major League Soccer.
The sickest New York City FC podcast. It's gonna be sick.
And I swear I know the name of the podcast. It's NYCFP Views.
You sure about that?
I was on somebody else's.
We'll test you again in about 30 minutes. We'll see.
I was on somebody else's pod yesterday, and I screwed up Tanasievich, his name, which is not the most
What part? The Strahinja part or the Tanasievich part?
No, what I did is I combined his first name and his last name and came out with a name. It was really,
Stranasievich?
Yeah, something like that. It was really unfortunate. Well, here we go. So it's a landmark show because we have now actually are producing, and Jimmy, our producer, back-to-back live shows. And as I said last night, we're not doing 5 days a week or anything. It just happened to work out that way. So, but Roberto, it's great to be back, and it's great to also have joined you at training today. And it's, we appreciate the opportunity to go up there once a week and see what's going on and have a chance to sit and talk to Nick and sometimes the players. And so we had a long chat with Nick today, and so we'll get into some of that. But what we learned is that Burke Risa has trained all week. So he's going to be likely available. That doesn't mean he's going to start, but likely available, which is good timing since Tanasievich, unless I can combine and come up with a new name again, but he's out with yellow card suspension. So, and if it's not Risa, the thinking would be Justin Hack because he's played there before. Otherwise, you've got to move Gray in there and Ilinic in, and that means you're making two switches. And I just don't. Yeah, I hope that doesn't happen.
Yeah, that's not happening. It's probably going. If it can't be Risa, it's probably going to be Hack.
Right.
That's really the way it's got to go because you're not going to mess around the whole back line for this, are you?
Well, more than one switch has been made in the past at times.
It has.
I'm not saying that it's impossible, but it's these guys that see these guys. It's the staff that sees these guys every day to make the decisions. But you're right. It'll be Risa or Hack, we would figure. Now, less certain is how the midfield will be structured, but Maxi Moralez is going to run the show. Santi Rodriguez also out suspended. And, that's a tough one. And we notice, and Santi he doesn't miss games, and he plays almost every minute of every game. So he's been a lockdown. You look at the Red Bull side, Roberto, and they've been missing Emil Forsberg for a number of games with injury. In fact, they have 2 wins, 11 draws, and 3 losses. Just 2 wins in 16 games when he hasn't been in the lineup. But Sandro Schwartz, their coach, said today in his presser that he's going to be in the squad. Now, how long he plays, that's up in the air. Will he start? Will he come in the second half? But I would imagine they'll get him on the pitch. He was a reserve in the first game, too, coming off of injury. So he's an important fellow for them. He's one of these guys who's used to derbies. He's played at a high level and maybe handling the emotions of it with some younger players on the side as well. It just seems like he could be a really important guy in this match.
For Forsberg, I want to go to him. He's been a really important player. I mean, he's played like 5 different positions from them. But, at 32 years old, he's hurt. And it's not, he might be back for this game. Everybody's been very cagey about all of this so far. He's only played 15 games this season.
But the manager, just to review, the manager said he's in the squad. So he's playing. So It's just a matter of how many minutes. But go ahead.
Yeah. The thing
He's not
is
gonna
that, I
sit on
mean,
the bench.
we've heard stuff like that before, and then they don't play. But when he says he's in the squad, he doesn't mean he's in the starting lineup, and I would not expect him
No.
to be in the starting lineup.
No.
So,
Well, he could, though. Look at it this way, though, Roberto, and I'll let you. I know you want to continue on Emil Forsberg, and he's key, man. He's a very critical component here. He could start. It just depends on how much they determine he can play based on his health and all the data. So maybe they determine 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 45, 60. We don't know. If they determine more than 45 minutes, he's going to start the game, I think. But we'll see. They've got to determine how long he can play, and I think that's how.
So let me ask you this as a coach, okay? This is your area, right? Now, understand that you're not privy to have watched him train and all the medical stuff that you have. But the guy hasn't played since June 29th, and he only played 4 minutes that game. Okay, you would not expect him to come in and start. You just would not.
You're right. But there's 4 games left in the season. They're jockeying. This is a little different, I think, if you look at the scenario. 4 games left. You're jockeying for position. You want to finish top 4. You're going into this game in the 4th position. You're right. They could bring him in for the last half hour, and that could be influential in the result of the game for them. You're right. But is it more important at home? It's going to be a noisy crowd, and maybe you start him and play him a half or whatever he's allowed to play. There's going to be a minute determination for this guy, and I think that's going to dictate more than – but your point is definitely well taken that he hasn't played since June 29th. So, I mean, that's considerable, that absence. Well, we said 16 games, right? Yeah,
exactly. So far this season, I mean, he was very influential while he played. 6 goals, 3 primary assists. He started 13 of the 15 games. By the way, pretty clean record. No yellow cards, no red cards. How about that? In 1,143 minutes.
Well, he's also a tempo guy, Roberto. Like he can. This is really interesting because one of the things that Sandro Schwartz, the new coach, he comes with he's in the Red Bull group, which means you have to play a certain way, and there's going to be pressing and there's going to be chaos. And if you watch the Atlanta game, that 2-2 draw, their last game, which we got a chance to see. I don't know if you went home and watched it, but we had that afternoon game against Inter Miami at Yankee Stadium. So we got home in time to watch the game. And it was, I mean, they could have been up 3-0 in the first half. That's for sure.
I didn't watch the whole thing. I watched the last 15 minutes of the game.
Brad Guzan was very, very good. And if he hadn't been good, Atlanta would have been down. But they weren't. And then the game settled in a little bit more. And then next thing you know, Atlanta's up 2-1, and the Rebels have to score a stoppage time goal in order to get the point. But and Forsberg, he comes from Leipzig, so he's a Red Bull guy. So he gets it, and he gets the derby. And we spent a lot of time talking about him. How about Maxi Moralez, who in 13 career games against the Red Bulls is the among the current players is the leading scorer with 3 goals and 6 assists for New York City. So 9 contributions in 13 games against the Red Bulls. And I said it last night too, Roberto. I think he may hold the key.
Maxi might. I mean, as you said, he controls the tempo. You can make an argument that as he goes, the team might go. And he's going to be really on the ball a lot, especially with Santi not being there, because, they play, even though every time you line them up both together and they say Santi's on the left wing, right? And that's how the graphic always comes out and appears. Santi's never on the left wing. I can't say never, but rarely on the left wing. He's everywhere. And so is Maxi, and they interchange and they move all around. And normally, whoever the defensive left back is a guy who provides the width on the left side. So you're going to miss one of your 2 creative talents on the field, and we're going to see how that winds up affecting New York City.
Well, if you listen to our commentary, in particular, Matt Lawrence, my analyst on the New York City FC radio network, his belief is, and I don't know where this falls statistically, but he doesn't think Maxi Moralez and Sandy Rodriguez play particularly well together this year in 2024. So you could look at it from that aspect. Look, you don't want to lose Sandy Rodriguez, but if Maxi's going to be on the pitch, maybe as the guy who's the orchestrator, the absolute orchestrator, maybe that gives him more impetus, and maybe he'll be providing a little bit more without Santi out there. Well, actually, they need him to, I suppose, the way you look at it.
Yes, they do.
And New York City won the first game 2-1. Remember that?
Yes, they did. And who scored the winning goal?
Monsef Bakrar. Where's he going to be?
He'll probably be on the bench.
Well, then,
and coming in late. Coming in late.
You know, that if it goes the way we've seen it, that's the way it will be. So we sat with Nick Cushing. You were in there with me. It's part of my pregame show. And first of all, if we go back to the Miami game, and we spoke a lot about that last night, but just to talk to Nick a little bit about it, he was just so happy to see that tifo. And I guess the way he described it is that he heard about it before, so he made an effort to like really look at it and get the feel for it. And because he was just so happy, and then with the bus coming in, and then with the shouting down the Messi chants, because he said, like, this is where he grew up, and when he went to Everton matches, you know, if there was anybody like, you know, if Ronaldo came in to Goodison Park, they weren't cheering him, they weren't wearing Ronaldo t-shirt, you know, he said just doesn't happen in Europe. You don't root for the enemy. You don't sell his t-shirts or his jerseys in your shop, which New York City doesn't do, but the Red Bulls did when Miami came in. They sold his damn jersey in their shop. Are you kidding me? But and so he's really appreciative of the fact that it really didn't happen at Yankee Stadium. So it was nice to hear him say that.
But not only that, I mean, really kudos to the fans. They showed up and they showed out, because in most of the games where Messi is on the road, especially in stadiums that are either NFL stadiums, you know, or very, very large stadiums, I mean, the majority of the fans turn out to be Messi fans. And I'm not going to say Inter Miami fans, because we know that that's not the case. They might be wearing Inter Miami jerseys a lot, but they're not Inter Miami fans. There's a lot of people that wear Argentina jerseys and they show out for Messi, and that's understandable. And that's understandable. But what I liked, and I don't know, I guess maybe I was afraid that New York City was going to be something of the same. Didn't turn out to be that way. I mean, most of the fans that showed up were New York City fans in baby blue, all right, or sky blue or celeste, whatever you want to call it. They were wearing New York City uniforms. And every time that the Messi fans started a Messi chant or something, because there were no Inter Miami chants, right? Yeah. There were none. Nobody's rooting for Inter Miami.
But there
were Messi chants.
No,
but they got shouted down every time. I loved it.
That's good. There was a lot of pink in the audience, but I'm sure they were all Messi shirts. You know, it's a Messi jersey.
Yeah, I mean, I doubt there were a lot of Robert Taylor shirts.
No, there weren't even Robert Taylor. No, not even Busquets, who didn't show up.
And I like Robert Taylor, by the way.
Busquets didn't show up for the game. Apparently, Roberto. So this kind of bothered me, but we don't know this for a fact. But apparently, he didn't show up for the game because he got engaged to his longtime partner. And this is something that Michelle Kaufman, who covers Inter Miami with the Miami Herald, she assumed. She said, no one has told me this. She just kind of assumed it because she saw an Instagram post of him, I guess, proposing or whatever to his longtime partner, and it coincided with him for personal reasons. That was in some copy. So personal reasons didn't make the trip. I was so disappointed.
Okay, so I heard something different. All right. So first of all, I didn't see the picture, and I don't know when it was taken. You know, I don't know if he had proposed that, if that was from that day, or they just decided to release that photo from whenever day that happened. But the story that I got from my friends on Apple TV was that he didn't go to the Atlanta game because he was suspended. And then he got the flu and he was not feeling well. And that's why he did not make the trip to New York City. That's the story that they told me.
Well,
And
Phil,
I'm just saying I don't know that for a fact either. I'm
Right.
just saying that is the story that they told me and I believe they ran with.
I asked Phil Shane and Thomas Rongen, the radio guys for Inter Miami, and they didn't know for certain either. They thought that maybe the club, because he had played so many minutes and a guy that's 36 years old, that they thought, well, let's just keep him home for this one too. Because let's face it, I mean, they're chasing the points record, which it has been made much more difficult by the tie against New York City. So that, but it's a foregone conclusion they're going to win the East, I think. I mean, there's still mathematical possibilities, but
Is there?
I don't know.
Let's see.
I don't know.
Cincinnati is same amount of games and 8 points behind.
Yeah, I mean,
with
so it's not,
4 games to go.
Yeah, it's not going to
So
happen.
it's a mathematical possibility, but it would have to be an epic collapse by Inter Miami.
And but so we don't know. But I tell you, if it was because he engaged with his girlfriend, man, I don't like that. But anyway, we don't know. So I'm not saying that. So that's back to the Miami. So here is also asked Nick about how they defended Miami. Lowest expected goals of the season. And then I focused on Messi, one touch in the New York City penalty area, one shot that wasn't on goal. And
it was that free kick. That one shot that wasn't on goal was that free kick that came, right next to the post. So it didn't miss by much, mind you.
Yeah, but so run a play doesn't have a shot.
He doesn't have a shot. That's even a bigger story.
That's an accomplishment. Luis Suarez did not have a shot on goal,
Yes.
and which is another part of it. So what? So his exact words were, "I lost count of the number of times people asked me if we had an individual plan for him." By the way, I did not ask him that because I knew exactly what his answer was going to be. So why bother wasting the 60 seconds when
Why did I see you scribbling furiously on your notes when he said that?
So what they did is, but it's team, and that's true. But let's face it, Sands in particular, Sands, and then other contributors. But I think Sands had most of the responsibility. But he talked about pressing high. And that kept Suarez and Messi further away from the New York City goal. And it makes so much sense. You keep them away from the goal. And then the one time he got close with some freedom, he helped with the help of Jordi Alba. Those guys have made a couple of passes together before. And then Campana got in for the opening goal. But 1-1. And then on the Sands late goal, and Roberto, you brought this up to me, and it was true. James Sands is not normally in the penalty, is not normally in a goal-scoring area on corner kicks. So here's what Nick said about that. And I'm going to play some real Nick later, which I asked him some referee questions, which I think is more interesting. But so he said, yeah, James, but he goes, so I asked, why was he there this time? And Nick's quote was, "We've tried everything else," but he also said, "I will defend Rob Vertughian with every inch of my body." And that's the guy that sets up the set pieces.
Yeah.
Vertughian's going crazy trying to formulate plans that will give New York City more scoring chances or just more goals from
on
these
dead ball situations.
Yeah. So, but I thought that was fun. Yeah. So Sands.
Yeah.
So he said, Sands, Tavon Gray, they might be. We might push them a little closer on these things. So
it's right. So normally, if everybody notices the way New York City sets up on offensive corner kicks, it's much more visible at the stadium than it is on TV. Your last man back, aside from Matt Freese, is normally James Sands. That's the way that they normally set up. I wasn't looking for that in that particular play. I was looking at the corner kick being taken and hopefully for New York City and their fans that somebody actually gets ahead on it. And then when I saw that it was James Sands, I was like first in shock because I did not expect him there. And then second in shock because the ball went in. And the reason I was in shock because of that is because James Sands never had a goal for New York City before. not with the main team. And his only goal was with Rangers when he played up in Scotland. So it was great to see for him to be able to get that because, he's been a stalwart defensively. Yes, there's been some errors, but every team has that and every player goes through that. Yeah. But I was very happy for him in particular to be able to get that goal. And then I thought about, the importance of the goal. And now this goes more towards what winds up happening the rest of the season.
Well, the way Nick put
I speculated if this becomes a Goody Robinson moment. And then actually while you were interviewing Nick today, he brought that up.
Well, he did on his own, and I didn't bring it up. And one thing he said is that they have monthly meetings as a staff with David Lee, and I'm not sure who everybody is in the meeting, but he referred to a monthly meeting, and David Lee said, imagine the feel of the team if it was reversed against Miami, where New York City had the 1-0 lead, and then Miami scored in the 5th minute of stoppage time, how that changes the psychology or the momentum for these final 4 games. And it is the psychology battle, and we're going to get into the psychology for a moment of the penalty kick shootout. But his exact quote, Roberto, and he goes back to 21, we were dead on our feet until Goody put in that goal. Because the next game we defeated DCU 6-0, and then it went from there to the MLS Cup. Now, I don't think they'll beat Red Bull 6-0 at Red Bull Arena. But he is, I think that means that there was something going on in that locker room after the game for him to feel that way.
Yeah, for sure. But I mean, New York City doesn't have to look too far back to be able to know what that feels like because they blew a 2-0 lead against Chicago. And, and they wound up fully blowing it in stoppage time. And we all know how the team felt after that game and what the fans felt after that game. So to be able to get this point in this match, them up in a much more positive way.
Roberto, I know we're live, but something has happened with your audio. We're still hearing you, so I don't know if you want to fool around with that a little bit.
I know what's happening. My cat has joined me, and he laid on some wires.
Well, get rid of the cat. I mean, permanently.
I can't get rid of the cat. You don't get rid of cats, Glenn.
Yeah, you can. You just
you do not.
Let him run outside, man. He'd rather be out on the streets in the alley.
No,
man.
he does not. Right now, they prefer to be next to me. This is what they are. And if Zena was here, this is Titan that's there.
How many
Zena was here? If she's on my lap, I don't want to
know about your cats, but I want to know this. How many people in your life send you more funny cat moments than me on text? Nobody, right?
Brenda, Eddie.
No,
sure,
I send
my friend Melissa.
No, I send you things almost daily.
Trust me, we get them all the time.
All right.
Do I sound okay? Is this working? Is it this one? I don't even know what microphone is on right now.
Yeah, you're popping a little bit, which means it's probably coming through your AirPods. So just try to kill your volume a little. Jimmy, I don't know if you can help us. Jimmy,
hold on. Let me switch.
But let me go on here. So so that's
I'm back onto the
that's good. Now we can hear you very well. So that's how Nick feels about. Is the momentum going to be there? Well, we're going to find out soon enough Saturday.
Yes, we will.
And at Red Bull Arena, our airtime for Roberto and I, 7:15 on the network. And Campeones Cup. I'm just going to move to that.
Wait, before we do, I don't want to get off the Red Bulls yet because there's something that's important.
Well, we'll get back to it.
All right, then go to Campeones Cup.
No, just say it. Just say
all right.
It.
As poorly as New York City has done getting results lately, and we know the one win since July 3rd against Montreal, who is an automatic win. Have you looked at the Red Bulls record? They've won two of their last 16. New York City's won one of their last 9. What else you got to say? Well, I was going to say that they've won 2 games since June 22nd, which was a 3-0 win over Toronto at Red Bull Arena, and then a 3-1 win over Cincinnati on July 20th. Then they went into Leagues Cup, and then since Leagues Cup, nothing, and including losses against Philadelphia at home, They tied Sporting Kansas City, which is a horrible team. They tied them at home. Atlanta has been terrible, although they tied Inter Miami at the last moment. Well, they tied Atlanta 2-2. We talked about that game. So, they haven't been good at all.
They haven't scored goals. They have the lowest expected goals in Major League Soccer. They've conceded the fewest number of shots, just attempts, in Major League Soccer. They're difficult to get behind. They've got a good goalkeeper, Carlos Coronel, but they can't score goals. And that's why Emil Forsberg, that's why I think if he's fit enough, I see him starting that game. But we don't know yet. And I'm going on to Campeones Cup and straight to penalties. U.S. Open Cup, they play extra time. And then the Canadian Championship, they went straight to penalties. So all three of those events were last night. So I don't know what you feel about the straight to penalties thing. But Columbus loses in penalties to Club America. And I'm going to Malte Amundsen. We all know Malte, the former left back for New York City FC. Played a little in the middle at times too. He hit the crossbar on his penalty. And it was the third miss for Columbus. And then America won on their next kick, and that was it. It was over. But here's the thing, and we're going to go over this, Roberto, and thank you for sending this, the screenshot, which is going to be part of Nick Cushing. I asked Nick Cushing today about that moment because the goalkeeper, both his feet were off the line, which is not permitted, before Amundsen struck the ball. So here's Nick today as I went over this with him. Campeones Cup. Now, one of your former players, Malte Amundsen, steps up to take a penalty, hits the crossbar, but the keeper for Club America had 2 feet off his line. He makes himself bigger if he comes off the line early, and Amundsen hits the crossbar. What do you think? What's your ruling on that, Coach?
I think that my staff say this to me every time because I ask those type of questions when I see a refereeing or a rule discussion, and I think what my staff say this to me: you're giving these guys that make the rules and adhere the rules far more credit than they deserve, right? We're football people. I totally agree with you. The goalkeeper comes off his line, he comes off his line. It's black and white. You can't say he comes off his line sometimes and this happens and that happens. If he's off his line, it's a retake. But, I think when the people are making those rules and they're writing them, unfortunately, in my opinion, they're not football people, so they just don't understand the game.
Ouch. Ouch. I mean, that's harsh, okay? But here's the rule itself, right? And so as it turns out...
he's 100% right, but go ahead.
Well, yeah, except that not. Except that he's not. And were you before when you said that, that it was what? Because the rules say differently. Now, I thought... You're going to read a rule, and then I'm going to tell you why it's not right. But go ahead. Well, you could say the rule isn't right, but the rule was interpreted properly.
I'm not going to say the rule is right, wrong. Go ahead. Read it.
Okay, so if the goalkeeper makes an offense, in this case, is off the line, if the ball enters a goal is awarded. So you move on. If the ball misses a goal or rebounds from the crossbar or goalpost, the kick is only retaken if the goalkeeper's offense clearly impacted on the kicker. And so in this case, that was interpreted as it didn't.
So you heard me say when he comes off the line, he makes himself bigger. Automatic. End of story. Don't tell me anything else. If he's bigger because he's a step off the line, both feet off the line, if he's bigger, which he is, then that can have an impact on the play. So how can you, as not you, but the person who determined that it doesn't need to be reviewed, say that didn't have an impact on the kick? And that's what Nick is talking about.
Because there are levels of gray. Because there are levels of gray in this area. Okay, but there's levels in gray. He was what? Half a foot off the line. He dove to his right. The ball went the other way and wound up hitting the crossbar. So if he had made a save, deflected the ball, then they would have retaken that immediately. There wouldn't have been a doubt. But because it didn't impact the play as far as that's concerned, Amundsen knew where he was going, wherever that guy was going to go, right or left. Amundsen knew where he was going. He didn't read the goalkeeper and decide to hit it where There isn't enough time for that.
As you're approaching the ball and the keeper makes himself bigger, which he did, you might unintentionally, but still, because of that, strike the ball at a greater height because the keeper's been. Why do keepers come out and cut down the angle, Roberto? So you can't dink it over their head. And it's harder to get on either side of you sometimes too, but you make yourself big for that reason. So I disagree.
So if he had run out, okay, again, this is why I'm talking.
I'm saying
listen to me. I know that. Let me finish my point. You don't win an argument by shouting me down and not let me give my point. That's not the way it works, by the way. Maybe at home it does, not here. Again, let me explain myself. If Malagón had run out and like threw himself on the ball before Malte could kick it and kicks it into him, all right, yes, that's that I get that. Or if he's running out and Malte tries to avoid him and kicks it wide because he's trying to avoid him and he's 6 yards off his line, I get that. But it was, again, that's levels of gray. And so this was, according to the way the referee interpreted and the VAR interpreted, because it was VAR, it was a smaller level of gray than the other scenario that I painted for you. And by the way, you should have mentioned at least that Amundsen scored the goal that tied the game for Columbus.
I'm more focused on the fact that.
Yeah, I know you are, Mr. Negative.
All right. LAFC got 2 goals at extra time. Kai Kamara making it 3-1. He played for Sporting KC when they last won the U.S. Open.
He's played for everybody except for New York City.
Yeah, that's true. Maxime Chanot played 120 minutes, continues to help lead the back line for LAFC. You know,
there's a lot of people that are really upset that he left New York City. A lot of fans.
And there are some that are not. I'm not talking about us.
I'm just saying there's a lot of fans that are very upset that he left New York City. And every time he plays well for LAFC, I sort of hear about it.
So Columbus, you're not the only one. Columbus missed 3 penalties. Vancouver beat Toronto for the Canadian Championship 4-2 on penalties. So there were 3 missed penalties in that one too. So that brings me to my special guest this week. If you're a subscriber to SiriusXM, and Roberto, I've insisted that Roberto listen to this show. And actually, I've sent it to many of my coaching friends, including those on the professional level, because I think it's a really important show. But it's Geir Jordet, who's friends with Ronny Deila, and who presented Ronny Deila when Deila was at Vålerenga before he came to New York City FC, presented him with penalty kick shootout ideas. Why does this guy Jordet have ideas? Geir, since 2004, has watched 3,000 penalties, well, just under 3,000, in all the big competitions, penalty kick shootout penalties. That's what he's focused on. And is the book that he's published and that we talked about, Pressure, Lessons from the Psychology of the Penalty Kick Shootout. So, Roberto, I want you to go back and watch those penalties last night and see how many players did this, because this is a clip from this interview with Geir about the takers' modern technique with a bit of a focus on Ivan Toney, England versus Switzerland. You're going to see that and watch the way he where his eyes are while he's striking the ball. Go, look at this. And he was looking at the keeper the entire approach up to the ball, Roberto, and he never looks down at the ball. Now we know that there's, well, let's piggyback off of this with Geir Jordet and the penalty kick shootout, the takers. Roll it.
Standard conventional coaching advice is, make up your mind for a corner and never ever change it. And then you see now, almost the majority of the super expert penalty takers out there in the world now, they do exactly the opposite. They go up to the ball, and they have not decided where to shoot the ball. They lift the foot to shoot the ball, and they have still not decided where to shoot the ball. So basically, half a second before the foot hits the ball, they're still undecided about where to shoot the ball. Now, this is, in all fairness, this is not a new invention that I came with this book. This has been around for decades. I mean, some of the top penalty takers in history, they use this technique. Diego Maradona being one, he would always use this type of technique. But the sophistication at which it's now being performed is almost ridiculous. And if you can do this well, like if you've polished this strategy, it's a very hard strategy to resist for goalkeepers, and we see a lot of successful penalty takers use this.
Well, Ivan Toney, and I know you wrote a piece in The Athletic or contributed to it in some fashion, talking about a guy that converts like 95% of his penalties. And it was something I was in tune with, because I know I've watched him a couple of times, and he literally is looking at the keeper and not at the ball. We do have peripheral vision, though, where you could still see the ball, even if you're looking forward. But I've never seen anybody do it quite like him, because his eyes are directly, it seems, on the keeper as he's approaching the ball. That's pretty brave.
Yeah, and it's very brave, and that says something about the mental, emotional robustness that you need to have if you're executing this approach. Because I mean, the pressure is big enough to begin with, and then knowing that you're gonna not look at the ball when you perform what may be the most important shot in your career, that's pretty tough. And because of that, these players, if it's Ivan Toney or Robert Lewandowski or Jorginho or others who are specialists at this particular technique, you can tell how seriously they also take the mental preparation bit. You can see them doing, deep breathing. You can see them taking the time after the whistle, because the emotional composure that they need to have for this particular technique is, I think, at higher levels than those executing the other technique, and they take the consequence of that with respect to how they approach the ball.
Now, do you see why that's an important interview? I mean, if I'm a player and I'm listening to that, I'm going like, I got to start working on that, because it's, you can do it. And Tony did that against Switzerland in the Euros to help England advance to the finals last year, after they had a really rough time in the 2020 Euros. And there's a lot of talk about what Gareth Southgate did to alter the approach a little bit. That's all part in the book and part of the interview. But anyway, so pretty cool, right?
Good stuff. Good stuff. Definitely tune in to SiriusXM for it's on demand, this show.
That's right. It's you just go to the app and search the Coaching Academy, and there it'll be. All right. It's time to feature Roberto and the stadium experience as we kick it around. All right, Roberto, this past Monday, you got a chance to wander around this stadium experience, which is pretty cool. So describe what it is, and Jimmy will throw some pictures up as well. And then Brad Sims also spoke to you in a group, but you had a couple of questions for him kind of outside of the stadium experience, which is good. But all yours. Go, man.
All right. So this wall that is on the 17th floor right now of the building where New York City has their offices, this wall is going to be transported into the stadium once the stadium is built. And what it is that there are, as you see, little squares, okay? And you see some of them have a little bit more life to them than others, and they're all in and around where the shield is, and you see it's a new shield. So every time that they sell a suite, they fill in one of those areas with a brick. And the whole idea is that once they sell every suite in the stadium, all that is going to be filled in, which was pretty damn cool. And they're different sizes. I don't know if you can, if you guys lean into it a bit, you could see that there are different sizes. And we're talking about this, it's the ones within the logo itself. And some of them are bigger and some of them are smaller. And that represents the size of some of the suites that are going to be on sale for the team. So it is actually a really, really cool idea. And they were able to, once the suites went on sale, they were able to sell 2 within the first day, which is like sort of blew them away. They were really, really happy. So they're well on the way to selling the suites. Now, why is it important to sell the suites? One of the things that Brad mentioned during our chat, which lasted 48 minutes with the media members that were present, on the 17th floor of the building, was that they have this rule, which could be 80-20 all the time, or 90-10 in some cases, of where all the revenue that's generated by these luxury boxes and luxury suites and luxury seating makes it more affordable to be able to sell tickets at lower price points for the rest of the stadium. And so one of the things that they wish that they were able to do was to be able to have more suites to be sold and more premium seating to be sold. The problem being is that there just isn't enough space. So I asked what I thought was a logical question, and I said, well, I know you can't expand north and south and east and west because you're constricted by the streets and, the size of the plot. Why didn't you go higher? And he says, the reason we couldn't go higher is that we're right smack in the middle of the LaGuardia flight plan. And so they can't make the stadium any higher. But not only that they have to start building the stadium, like the ground level of the stadium is 6 feet off the ground. And the reason that is thank you, Superstorm Sandy. And so if there becomes another when it does happen, because it's going to happen, it's not a matter of if, with climate change, that's going to happen. So and you're not that far away from the bay, which means that there's going to be areas that are going to be flooded. But with 6 feet above, that means that everything in the stadium should be protected and should be fine. So that is one of the things that they're building into the stadium. And so you lose about 6 feet of rows of seats that you probably could have put in, which I don't know how many it could have been. So they say that they don't have the final count on how many seats it's going to be. The round number is 25,000, but it's not going to be exactly 25,000. So it may be, I don't know, it could be a little bit more, could be a little bit less. And I keep on asking them, is there any way to add extra seats afterwards? Like if you decide, okay, so we have a waiting list of 10,000 people that want to get in and you wanted to add seats. And the answer pretty much is not really. So I don't know, maybe they could add 20 or 30, but they're not adding 1,000 or they're not adding 500. It doesn't look that way. So they've set this place up for a whole tour. And this is like what some of the suites are going to look like. Yeah, I mean, it's just really, really fantastic. And it seems
that's a big suite.
Yeah, all these premium areas. Well, this could be a joined suite sort of thing, where it could be, for some of the premium seats, that, in certain sections, and they can all come up. But it seems like one part of the stadium is going to be like full premium, and that's going to be with food and beverage.
Yeah,
it's going to be pretty damn nice. Also going to be on the pricey side of the stadium. And then the other side is going to be where all the rest of us will sit, well, when we're not working.
Did they crack open any of those bottles?
They did, sir. There were some beverages, some beer, no spirits, no wine. They were there, but they weren't open.
That's not bad. Well, this is a photo you took, and this is the part. There's a lot to this stadium that's.
Wait, go back,
Jimmy. There's a lot to this stadium. There's a lot to this stadium that is just so great for the supporters. But again, I care most about the inside and the field and the atmosphere, and it just looks tremendous.
It does, and this is the only time you're ever going to hear me use this word. Okay, the pitch, and I don't mean the field. I mean the level of the angle of the seats. Okay, of the supporter section.
Do you know
what the supporter? I don't know the exact pitch of it, but the angle that the supporter section is going to be on is going to be wild. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's safe standing. It's going to be over 3,200 seats that are part of that, that are part of it. And it's going to be wild. And then with the roof.
Did they say how many are there? I'm just looking at TQL, for instance, which has a very, a pretty severe steep. It's 34-degree angle at TQL, and it's 3,100 that stand. Any numbers on that?
The only thing we heard was it was a little bit over 3,200. I didn't get the exact number.
That's a good number,
but it's a really, really good number.
Yeah,
and I didn't get the exact angle. I didn't ask. I didn't have the foresight, sadly, to ask that, Glenn. You should have been there.
What's the Minnesota Allianz? Right, they have a really steep. I'm going to look them up. Go ahead, keep going.
Yeah. So as far as the other seats, there's not a bad seat in the place, and he was really excited to talk about that, right? To talk about how it's going to be such a great experience that no matter what stadium that you've been in to see a New York City FC game, that it's not going to compare to what the experience is going to be, once the stadium opens in 2027. Let me see some of the other things that were important before we get to the questions that I asked. So what was the target date as far as when a shovel's going to the ground? So they're pushing for end of September. Well, we're in September, and we're pretty much at the end of September. Today's the 26th, and he was saying the end of September. It's not. I don't think it's happening the end of September. Now, we got 5 days left.
Well, why can't they just get out there and start doing it, man?
Because they have to get the land lease from the city, and once that happens, they can break ground. But and then he said they're still pushing for the end of September on this, but I don't know when they're getting the land lease from the city, and I'm hoping that this whole Mayor Adams situation isn't stopping anything, and I don't think it is. But because I think that they're past
what's going on with him?
Yeah, no, nothing much. We'll leave it at that. He's got some federal problems of some sort, but I think they're past the point of where he's involved, so that's okay.
I'm looking up Allianz. I don't have the pitch angle, but they have bike parking for 400 bikes. I like that.
Yeah,
I like that. I'm going to put that in the suggestion box.
There you go. So one of the things that he said is that in the area of the stadium, although they haven't done the formal groundbreaking yet, that they're already doing pre-construction work. They're testing piles and things of that nature. So all of that's already happening on the site as we speak. So they're already advancing with all of this as they get ready to open, to start construction of the stadium. So they talked about the new badge and, that they engaged a lot of fans, and he probably received like 15 to 20 emails from people who didn't like the new badge. There's always people. And he said that he answered every single one of the emails, and he engaged everybody who sent him an email on that. Then the next part that he spoke about was the founding members, me. And what is going to happen. So we're getting rebranded, Glenn. So all of us who were a founding member are now going to be called club founding members. Okay, people that have been with the team from the beginning, and we're all going to be commemorated at the stadium in an area that they've already designated, but it hasn't been finalized.
Are you going to get a brick?
There's going to be a whole bunch of bricks.
Are you going to get a brick, Roberto?
I will get a brick on the floor, not a brick on the wall.
God.
So
not with a picture, I hope. Just the name.
No. It's it's not Halloween, for crying out loud.
Wow,
so,
you're going to get a brick.
Yes,
boy. I love that.
I love it too. And so, which, I hope to see.
Another brick in the wall.
With my health situation, with what happened last year, I have my doubts if I'll make it, but who knows? We'll see. Everything should be fine. But the other part is that they're going to create a new category, and it's going to be stadium founding members. So there's going to be the club founding members, and then, you know, they're going to say thank you very much, all of that, and they're going to create a new category, which is the stadium founding members, and so they're going to address that. Another important thing that they talked about, which was a question, is like if there's a big game, like, you know, the equivalent of Messi comes to town and you have the ability to sell more than 25,000 seats, you know, are you going to take the game to MetLife? And his answer was, or, you know, Yankee Stadium, Citi Field, or whatever. And he said he got enough crap, and he didn't use the word crap, but the equivalent of it, over the last few years for taking games to New Jersey. So, by the way, folks, your voices were heard. And he thinks, yeah, I'm going to be, okay, let's go to MetLife. That's a quote. And he says, yeah, that's not happening. Once we have our new stadium, he goes, really, I don't see it. Never say never type of situation, but I don't see it. They don't care about your commute. They care nothing about your commute.
No, it's a very easy commute because for the World Cup, they're building New Jersey Transit. Thank you very much for those from the Big Apple who are going to come into World Cup games at MetLife Stadium, including the final. They're building, New Jersey Transit is building a route that will go directly to MetLife Stadium, which will make it very easy to see Messi if he's not going to be playing in 27 anyway. So, you know, I don't think
he'll be playing in the World Cup in 2026.
Yeah.
So anyway, so let's get to the questions as we
well, before we do that, let's remember that homage, and we want to pay homage to homage.
Oh, please do that.
Yes, for and their quality shirts and hoodies that are available online for the New York City Football Club and
all teams.
And all teams. So maybe you're a fan of more than just New York City FC if you're watching this, which would be cool because we talk mostly about New York City, but as you know, we talk about many other things as well. But here on Kicking It Around, we're going to stay with New York City, who have a new vice chairman and somebody who's a minority owner and somebody who's got the big bucks. And Roberto, you asked some good questions here, Brad Sims. Go for it.
All right. So there was an original question about Mauricio Claure, and then to try to set this up, I sort of did a follow up to try to understand what what's going to happen with him as they bring him in and what his responsibilities are going to be.
Don Garber had said in the press release when you announced Marcelo that he was going to be sitting on the board of governors, if I read that right. What are going to be the level of, is he going to be, he doesn't seem to be like a silent partner per se, just an investor. What's going to be his role within the team and going forward?
No, I mean, I think he has a vast amount of experience and quite frankly, business connections and things of that nature that, I mean, maybe I didn't directly answer the one before, like why now for him? I mean, like why not now? Like I don't think there's a more perfect time for someone to get involved with this club when you're, with where the sport's going, where this market's going, with the stadium. Like, I mean, to me, like that, if he was able to get in, like perfect time for him to get in. And then for us, going forward, and like what does that mean for him? Like, he's going to want to make this thing successful, right? And so, and he's ambitious. He's wired to be ambitious. He's wired to win. So, DP question, things like that. I mean, he wants to win on the pitch. He wants to win on the business. He wants to win off the pitch. So, I anticipate that he's going to be a great resource for us. I mean, he brought guests into the game on Saturday, and he was already trying to sell them suites for the new stadium, like right in front of me. So I was like, all right, we'll give you a call on Monday, type thing. So I think he's going to be a great resource for us. I think he obviously has a lot of other business interests, so remains to be seen. It's so new, remains to be seen. How it's all going to work together. But I've been in, I'm in pretty regular communication with him, and I would anticipate that we would be going forward. And because we want the same thing, we want to grow this thing to be the best that it can be, and grow the business to be huge, and have a successful stadium opening, and win some more trophies. And so yeah, it's he's gonna be a great addition for us for sure.
Is there any chance that because of his involvement and his passion, as you described it, that it changes the way New York City focuses on how much money they're going to be spending on players and on things like that, and maybe getting a different sort of player?
I don't know, because I think it's been a week or whatever, so you gotta give us some more time to see how it goes. But I'm making some assumptions based on what I know about him, the successes he's had in everywhere he's been, pretty much, like in his career, and his ambition that he wants to win, and so we're gonna, I would anticipate he's going to be pushing us from the business side, pushing us from the sporting side to how can we be better.
Can you keep him away from crypto?
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast NYCFC Views on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.